Wait, what? Oh man, no, 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 not that, not that now, not that, no. Oh. Welcome to Nintendo Nightly, your Monday through Friday update in a bite-sized format for everything going on in the world of Nintendo. My name is Michael Cottrell, your host, and you've probably seen by now the trailers, the hype, the reaction between the new Pokemon announcements that recently happened. So we've got a new Nintendo Switch game, actually a couple of them, one of which we'll talk about today, one of which we'll talk about tomorrow. Let's jump into Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. So this was a build during the press conference and in a lot of the surrounding conversations as the core Pokemon game that was coming to Switch. And that's halfway true. It is a core Pokemon game in terms of mechanics and where it's coming from. It's using the very first game as a palette to put new features into and to also kind of bring about a simplified version of Pokemon to those that Game Freak is trying to attract to the franchise. And at the same time, it's not the 2019 core Pokemon game, the continuation of Pokemon Sun and Moon that we've really been waiting for. So I want to talk about just this seemingly strange move and my reaction to it and how I see this as a larger strategy for the Pokemon company going forward. So rather than starting with the grand Pokemon core console game that we've all been waiting for a very long time, we have a half step in that direction. So we've got a very contained game. There's 3DS-like graphics. It really looks like an up-res 3DS game. A very comfortable art style that meshes with Pokemon Go, meshes with the previous games. They probably didn't have to do a whole lot of work to get this game looking the way that it does, compared to, what it would be if they were totally reimagining the series, which we could be seeing in the next title that's coming in late 2019. We've got the very self-contained portion of the game being that it's already been made and remade, and they've got all the areas mapped out, a lot of the dialogue they can probably just, copy and paste over to the new game, and only working with 150 or so Pokemon instead of the entire roster of what must be like 6,000 Pokemon at this point. We've also got a game that is connecting to Pokemon Go, and I think the reason that that's happening is one of two reasons. We've got Pokemon Go happening in the last couple of years, and I want to share a stat with you that I got from at Circantoto. I'm probably saying that wrong, on Twitter. You should follow him for all sorts of insider industry information. He, I believe, works out of Japan and covers the Japanese gaming industry. But he brought about some stats on his blog that I want to share with you. And if you are listening to the audio version, make sure you check the description for these if you want to just see the sheer scale. So of the last 10 fiscal periods that the Pokemon company has had, the last two have been vastly superior to any of those. So they have been as low as a $1.3 million loss, and as high in the period before Pokemon Go as $18.7 million. But after Pokemon Go came out, we've got a $145 million profit. And then after, the most recent one is $80 million. Not quite as high as when the Pokemon Go train was in full swing, but still very respectable. These periods just account for so much more than those last 10 fiscal years combined. And that's why we're seeing this very quick strategy for Game Freak to capitalize on the popularity of Pokemon and the Pokemon company to do so as well. So they've created this new game that is really targeting fans of that game, as well as lapsed Pokemon fans who might have played the first couple games and just fallen out. Maybe they have kids now that might be interested. And so we have this game that is revisiting the world of Kanto. It is connecting to Pokemon Go, and we have the two-player functionality where we could, see that sort of parent-child pairing, or, more of a casual Pokemon experience. I don't know, in really watching it, I didn't know if there was a battle system. It seems like the catching system is more like Pokemon Go than core Pokemon games, so we'll probably just be throwing Pokeballs at the enemies. I don't even think we'll be attacking them in the wild phase. And then we've got some form of battle system happening that looks very similar to 3DS games, but I don't know if they're going to try and simplify that, if they're going to take the leveling system out. There does seem to be some evidence suggesting that the Pokemon still retain individual levels. There was a Psyduck that was noted as like level 13 in the trailer, but I don't know how far they're going to go into that, or if it's going to connect into the larger Pokemon series. I don't think that Pokemon is too complicated for newcomers to learn, so I would hope that they keep a lot of what made the core series in this game, in that it will act as sort of a connection point from the Pokemon Go crowd to the core Pokemon crowd. And I think that this interesting interstitial release is really one that can bridge the gap between, in one case, the 3DS games and the core Pokemon game that we're waiting for. We get something that looks definitely like vastly better than anything that we've gotten before, but not quite what our expectations might be, seeing the likes of Mario Odyssey and Zelda Breath of the Wild really just setting the bar incredibly high for Nintendo IP. And in another sense, it is a stepping stone from the simplicity of Pokemon Go to some of the core series. They shared a stat during this press conference that Pokemon Go just reached 800 million downloads, and at the same time, there's only about 18 million Switches in the wild. If Pokemon Let's Go can convert any percentage of that massive population into a Switch purchase, into a Pokemon Let's Go purchase, into a purchase of the Pokeball accessory, then that's a huge win for the Pokemon Company and a huge win for Nintendo, and I think a huge win for the Pokemon community at large. Pokemon can only get more ambitious and a bigger offering if we continue to see it grow financially. It's not going to happen just out of the goodness of Nintendo and the Pokemon Company's hearts. There's going to have to be a financial incentive attached to it. And so for a lot of the complaints that are going on in the core Pokemon community, this, I think, is a good game, and something that we're going to need to have to try and pull in as many of those Pokemon Go folks into the Nintendo Switch ecosystem and into the ecosystem of Pokemon. And I think for some of the core people who have fallen out of Pokemon Go, they tried it, they don't play it anymore, it's, sort of a reminder that that game exists and that it's going to connect to some of the future Pokemon games that we will see on the Nintendo Switch. And so it's a reason to get back into Pokemon Go and therefore the greater Pokemon ecosystem. And I've been a huge critic of Pokemon Go. It's taken years for that game to become just functional, and there's been all sorts of controversies and just crazy things that have happened with that game. But I think this partnership and this brand integration that we're seeing is a good opportunity for Pokemon Go to continue to get better and to continue to form into some semblance of a game. Right now, it's fun enough to get into, to walk around, to catch Pokemon, to take gyms and all that stuff. I check into it, once or twice a week, but I really do hope that they step up their game as well to make that a great offering on our phones when it's inconvenient for us to play on the Switch. So it doesn't look like this game is going to be anything special from a mechanics standpoint, but I'd love to take an HD romp through Kanto one more time before we see what's really up Game Freak's sleeve. The multiplayer really excites me, the Pokeball thing looks cool, and I think this will be a nice little appetizer for what is hopefully the main course that we've all been waiting for, the open world, just open-ended Pokemon game that is the best kind of online interactivity that we've ever seen out of the franchise. I'm really still holding out for that game on the Nintendo Switch, but this is great to hold me over in the meantime. And who knows what we're going to get in 2019. It hasn't been that long since the last Pokemon that we've gotten. This team has never developed a core Pokemon game on the console, so who knows what kind of shenanigans will happen in there and how good of a game that we're actually going to get out of them once 2019 rolls around. But I hope it's a lot better than this. This is nice for a sort of spin-off title, something that is a simplified Pokemon game meant to attract new players for the series, but my hope is that in 2019, Or perhaps at E3, we'll find out what Game Freak is really up to. And in the meantime, yeah, this looks fun. This looks fun. And for some supplementary info for those of you that didn't tune in to the press conference, the game is likely going to cost $50 to $60 as the yen to USD translation right now sits at $55. The Pokemon, the Pokeball accessory that they have there is $45 in USD currently, which seems kind of pricey, but I've been waiting to carry a Pokeball in my pocket, like a real Pokeball in my pocket, for like 20 years, so I'll splurge a bit on that. So that has been the update for today. If you want to keep up with all the latest in Nintendo news, impressions, reviews, be sure to subscribe. It helps the channel a lot, and if you're listening to the audio version of the show, I'd love if you left an iTunes review. That helps with show visibility and marketing. I'd love to make this a bigger and better thing for you, so I'd also appreciate your feedback in the process. That'll do it for today's episode of Nintendo Nightly. Join me next time, tomorrow, as I dive into Pokemon Quest and give you guys some impressions and reviews based on that. Thank you so much for tuning in again. My name is Michael Cottrell. I will see you next time for more Nintendo Nightly.